we go. Hey everybody, welcome to the Open Economy Initiative's live stream for February 11th. I am Matt. I'm joined by my co-founder, Chill Brimer. And tonight we're going to be talking with Randy Brito, the co-founder of Locha Mesh. He's going to give us a short presentation just so everybody is kind of up to speed on what they're doing. And then at that point, we'll
hey everybody, welcome.
Take some questions from the chat and have a conversation with everybody. So yeah, pretty excited about that. Before I turn it over to Randy real quick, I just want to, if you're new and you're tuning in, you haven't heard about the Open Economy Initiative before, what Chill and I are doing is we're on a mission to promote cryptocurrency commerce, and we're primarily doing that through education. We have a few courses up on Udemy about how to purchase Bitcoin and how to get into Ethereum DeFi. We're expanding our offerings out, and we want to incorporate some privacy respecting technologies in there. But so yeah, stay tuned on that. But you can always find us on YouTube and on Twitter at the OpEI. And we've got lots of great news and updates and fun live streams like this, so you can come out and have fun with us. So with that, I will turn it over to Randy. Thank you for joining us, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're really excited. We're really excited. I'm interested to hear what you've got to say with the presentation. So I'll just turn it over to you and yeah, take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm likewise. Well, I'm Randy Brito. I co-founded Locha Mesh, which is an open source mesh network for hardware and software project that we started almost 3 years ago. And I'm also the founder of BitcoinVenezuela.com, a non-for-profit organization that started doing education about Bitcoin in Venezuela back in 2012. And I would like to tell you about the Locha Mesh open source hardware and software project, and what is the goal of our idea, which started during August 2018, when there was a huge disconnection in the whole country in Venezuela, a blackout that left the country completely without electricity for a week in all states of the country. And the idea back then was, how do you continue using Bitcoin and continue making payments and doing commerce and communicating with others if there is no internet? And the thing is, if the situation there is that when there is no electricity for a few days or even weeks, even the cell towers stop working, right? So even if you manage to charge your phone, you won't be able to connect to the internet. You won't be able to access your wallet or even sync your wallet in order to be able to see the current balance that you have and make payments with it. So this idea evolved into what the Locha Mesh currently is the project, which is try to make a censorship resistant, independent communication layer, physical layer that enables payment in a decentralized serverless way. So you don't have to rely on the traditional internet infrastructure, and our idea is to enable truly freedom money through Bitcoin, Monero, cryptocurrencies, and anything that can be sent over radio frequencies, like the Wi-Fi, for example, but in longer distances. And the idea that evolved was that not only Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies is the need for or is in need for an alternative of the traditional internet, but also communications itself. And that's what I am going to tell you about now. And the free market capitalism doesn't exist, and the world hasn't been able to actually practice this uh, freedom or permissionless freedom, right? People currently live under uh, intervened economies, mixed economy they call, where the government intervention is everywhere, from the number of things that you have to build, the number of things that you have to sell, the prices on them, and how much you have, what is the cut that the government takes, if one company gets subsidies or if it's a bailout, or all these things happen. So this is far from being free market capitalism. and what we can see now is that the the control that can be imposed on trade, conversations, and everything, and everything in our lives is getting uh, worse. The control that the government has now, it's basically full of everything that we can do, and this is caused by the internet, currently existing infrastructure, right? So we have now situations where companies not only have to obey to regulations, that they have to keep track records of everyone that uses them, but they now willingly give this information to the governments, and they do this and for whatever political reasons they have, but also their beliefs as ideologies and things. So if you give, if you trust in someone, which is a third party like a company, with your data, with your life, with the communication that you have with other, and the payments that you do, um, you are exposing yourself to the control they can have over you. And we have now the situation that government are not happy with the amount of information that companies are giving them. Now they are going to add even more, and it's going to be more obvious. And well, the payments has always been uh, regulated and reported back to the governments for years, and now conversations are also being subjected to that. Not only like it used to be before, that they try to justify it by saying that it's for terror, they have to stop terrorists and bad people on the internet. Now it's just basically because someone is suspicious that you are saying something that you should not, or you are making a transaction that you shouldn't be paying someone, because that someone is not just, in this case, a terrorist or something, but it's someone that I'm not happy with, or someone I think he's a dissident of the current regulations, or policies I'm trying to impose on the citizen, right? And now we don't have uh, the freedom of speech, but we also don't have the freedom of trade. I think most people don't understand this if they live in countries where there is rule of law, or appears to be rule of law, and they have some kind of like good looking constitution, and they some people don't see where freedom of speech is violated, and people's wealth is uh, taken by the government, and the by governments, and what we can see now is that our freedom of speech is also being um, coerced by governments and institutions. So we no longer have even uh, any kind of freedom online. And the worst thing is that while being online, you're actually not free at all. You are currently being permitted and being allowed to do the things that you do online, because they can see, they can tell, they know who you are, they know where you live, your internet connection in your house is connected to your identity and your document. You might even have you might even have to KYC yourself, and identifies yourself with your scanning your face or your fingertip in order to be able to get a SIM card. And so the internet that you use on your phone and the internet that you use in your house currently identifies you completely with your real personal identity, and you are currently just being allowed to do the things that you do online, like checking the Bitcoin price or using your Bitcoin wallet or making a transaction of Monero over Tor. And they know you are using Tor. They know that the packets that travel from your home internet connection is connected to these services and these products specifically. And they currently are just allowing you to use it until they don't want you anymore, or they target you specifically, or you are from some culture or some I don't know, DNA that they don't want, right? So the thing is that you currently think that if you're using Tor or you're using I2P or you're using a Draxil or something else on your home internet connection or your phone internet connection, you might think that you are using privacy preserving tools or anonymation tools, but what you are actually saying is that you are using this specific tool, and now it is connected to your identity. So if you make a transaction of Monero, or you make a transaction of Bitcoin or Green or some other privacy oriented cryptocurrency, you are letting them know that you are doing that, you specifically, with your name. And after that, you are most probably being added into a list. Most countries now say that they can go to exchanges and ask for people's names in list on the amounts they have traded, but they are also creating this data collection and big data that they can figure out what you have been doing online and how can they connect that to your identity. And they can do this in order to target you to, for example, say that you have to pay this amount of taxes. And if you try not to pay, they can simply kick you out. They can disconnect you completely from the internet. They just need to call the ISP, and the ISP is going to comply. And they can do this because the cables and the cell towers are owned, regulated, or even operated by the governments themselves. But what is the solution to this situation? And we think that is censorship resistant physical layer of communications that we call the Locha mesh, which is a mesh network of devices that connect to each other in a decentralized way, not intermediated. There is no servers and there is no third party. Connections happen directly between nodes, between the hardware devices themselves, and there is no one in between that can censor them or can listen to the conversation they are having, or can or try to stop them from trading, communicating, or accessing services inside the Locha mesh, right? So the Locha mesh is an open source software and open source hardware project, and this being open source is important in the software because you can audit the code and you can see what it's actually doing, and it's important too because if some of parts of the codes can be prohibited or cannot be exported or are not accessible from your country or from the internet connection that you have, that many websites, for example, are blocked in many countries. They have blacklist. They have many websites there blocked that people cannot access from inside the country. Sometimes using VPNs, it's also not the best way to try to get to something, because that VPN is also a company that is in some jurisdiction. So if the idea of being completely open source software is that you can install and you can compile the software yourself, and it can be smuggled inside country if needed. But it's also important that the software runs on something, and that something is hardware. And this hardware, if you buy a phone, it could have already been compromised in the way to you. It could have some kind of chip that makes calls from to home, make calls to a server in China, or calls or to Russia or the US. And so you cannot trust hardware that is not open source. So that's why the Locha mesh is also open source hardware, and it's completely open source. It's really, truly open source hardware, because we are not going to just post a PDF or images of the hardware circuits. We are going to make available for everyone the whole sources of the hardware production. So you will be able to replicate the hardware yourself, and you will be able to build your own version of it if you want. That's what actual freedom hardware is, which is being able to tell what's in the hardware itself, what each component do, and you can modify it, and you can fix it, and you can break it or hack it if you want. Now, why it's important that it's not only open source software, but also open source hardware, is that when you are using the traditional internet infrastructure, the cables, the cell towers, the phones that you are using, and even the computer, you are trusting someone. But if you run hardware and you are capable of building it, and you are capable of checking or at least auditing what it's inside of it, if you are capable of running your own hardware, like Bitcoin full nodes, running your own nodes for Monero, and you're also owning and running the communication channels and layers, in this case, radio frequencies, you can actually say that you are free. In this case, you get full permissionless freedom. You don't have to ask anyone for permission in order to make use or exercise your rights. And this is why we think that we needed to do the physical layer from the bottom. And this is why the devices that we've been working on for the past 3 years do what they are meant to do, which is connect with each other in order to create a mesh for nodes to talk to others, to route information and data in a censorship resistant way. So the network is the most important part of a mesh. The mesh itself needs nodes, needs people running hardware in order to be relayers and route data and information to others, in order to reach longer distances, in order to reach the mint recipient, and in order to do it in a way that if you get attacked or the network or the frequencies get jammed in some part, you can find enough other devices running around you, so you can route the information through a different path in order to circumvent attacks or in order to circumvent blockage. So this is why we need the network effect of users, that we need everyone who cares about privacy and anonymity and cryptocurrencies and the information freedom, and also the freedom of speech and freedom of trade, will need to be part of this network by running the hardware itself, in order to be able to create a censorship resistant network that is capable of or that can enable truly free market capitalism, using hard currency and using privacy as the most important part of it.
Awesome. Is that sorry? Is that okay? That looks like that was the presentation. Yeah, that's really interesting stuff. I mean, I've been exposed to a few other products kind of similar to this. Well, I shouldn't say similar, but I don't know if you're familiar with GoTenna or not. But
I know them.
Okay, yeah. So I'm a little familiar with that project, but as far as I know, they're not like, I mean, they're just facilitating internet access, whereas it seems like Locha is trying to also include like Bitcoin transactions and Bitcoin nodes and things like that. Is that correct, or do I have incorrect information?
Well, the thing is that the devices that they sell to consumers is very limited in its capability, right? So the device that you can buy yourself as a regular user, it's capable of sending between 1 to 50 kilobits per second only, and up to 12 or 16 devices only. So the mesh that you can build can only handle 16 users. It is meant to be used as go hiking or go to the wild to walk and things like that. Or they say they also use it for rescue teams in fires and things like that, and disasters. But the thing is that what we could get access to is closed source. The hardware is proprietary too, and is closed source software too, which also ask for access to your contact list and your GPS location in order to be able to use it. And even if you crack it completely and you use it connected to a computer instead of your phone where it asks for everything, you still have to sign up to their website. And in that case, you are doing that from your home computer and your internet connection or your phone internet connection. So you are most probably exposing your IP address and your ID to them in order to be able to get an API key that you can use for what you say what you mentioned, that they are doing some kind of gateways or bridges, right? So they did a proof of concept doing that, right? The thing is that what we are doing is different in a way that our devices currently are capable of doing like 1 to 100 the bandwidth that they can. Uh, it's currently enough to sync the latest block of the Bitcoin blockchain, for example. You can sync your Bitcoin node. You can use a bit your Monero wallet to over the hardware that we have built in the past 3 years, and it has full IPv6 support. So it works with many services and apps and software that already is capable of using the IPv6 and stack. And the thing is that we also have this idea that it must be open hardware too, so you can also build your own. So this is what we have been trying to do, make it as open as possible, but also making usable in the real life. So the devices that and the software and firmware that we have created uses also radio models that uses frequencies that are unlicensed. So you don't need a license to transmit information over these radio bands. And you can also encrypt the information that you are transmitting. That some radio bands, that's not allowed. So the ones we are using are the ISM unlicensed bands. So you can do all this. And you can also, obviously, what we are trying to do is make it not hardware specific, but actually hardware agnostic. So you can change part of it in order to make it better. Like the radio model that we are using is capable of doing 200 kilobits per second right now, but there is already hardware in the market that can do 2.2 megabits per second. That's a lot in comparison to most internet connections in many countries. So in this is what we have been doing, a more open platform that you can improve from the years to come.
Gotcha. Chill, was there a question from the chat?
Yes, we have a couple questions. So, what are the exit nodes to the internet? Mesh peer-to-peer is fine and works, but you still need internet and access to blockchain to update the block. That's the first one. So basically, the Bitcoin wallet still needs to sync to blockchain.
Right.
Yeah. Well, in the early days of the mesh network, which is an alternative network, right? You have the current like great internet network, which is a lot of connection between a lot of servers and data centers, right? And then you're going to have the Locha mesh, which is an alternative communication network. That those two networks can talk to each other through gateways or border routers that do as bridges between them, right? So in the early days, you will need these bridges, the gateways, until many services run inside the Locha mesh and are accessible through the Locha mesh. But you currently can have a Monero node, Monero daemon node running inside the Locha mesh and also running at the same time in the internet. So you can have users accessing your IPv6 over the Locha mesh. So these users are Monero interfaces, for example, or lightweight wallets, and they ask you for the latest blocks that you have because you have a full node running connected to the internet, and you can provide them with this service and you can get paid for that. And then you have other users inside the internet that are syncing blocks with you or accessing from interface Monero wallet, for example. So yes, in the early days, you will still have to go to the internet to find miners to mine your blocks. But the idea is that in the future, the whole network has also users running services and getting paid for that as a way to incentivize an alternative to the current highly controlled surveil and censorship or how you say that is what the current internet infrastructure that can be censored. So the idea is to have an alternative mesh peer-to-peer network.
Right. Another good question that I would like to know as well. So what are the protections in place to keep, obviously, the government, especially, authoritarian governments from joining the network? There's none, right?
Well, the nodes, what they do is route information and relay information. So if you are close to me and we are in range, let's say we are in a radius of 5 kilometers between each other, and you are trying to send information, and I'm a government agent that is inside that radius, and I'm getting the information that you want me to route to other node to get somewhere, right? To get to the recipient. What I can do as a bad actor is not deliver that information to the others. And so basically block you from the rest of the network, right? The thing is that if I don't get a confirmation that my data has been delivered and I try a couple of times, I know that you are not doing what you are supposed to do. You are not routing the information through the path that I suggested you that you should be delivering the message through, right? In that case, I can the devices what they do is add you to a block list, and then they don't use you anymore as a way to get to their destination. So they cannot see the information that you're transmitting if you encrypt the data. What they can see is pseudonymous of who you want to reach, maybe which part of the network they are. But the networks are basically pseudonymous, so you cannot actually tell who is transmitting. The thing, what they could do, this is radio frequencies, obviously, and it's that they can try to listen to the radio and get the quality of it and the power you are transmitting in order to try to track you down. But they have to be very close to you. And that's why our devices are mobile first, because you can carry them around. So you can be in a car, you can move around, you can transmit from different places. So it will be more difficult to track you down using this technique.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was going to be my question was, yeah, what if somebody's listening on it, but you're saying that the data is being encrypted in transit and then the receiver is able to decrypt it. So even if they're sitting there listening to everything they're passing through, they still wouldn't be able to see exactly what you're transmitting.
Yeah, at the app level, you can encrypt the information. That's why it is important that the packets are bigger than the current available tech for mesh. Because we want this to be able to be used in real life, and to be able to be used in real life, you need to be able to encrypt it.
Gotcha. So circling back a little bit more to the first question from the chat there about the exit nodes. I mean, initially, as it starts out, is it primarily a way, if someone's using Locha mesh, it's a way to get from somewhere with no internet or a censored internet out to kind of the broader World Wide Web, at least in the initial stages. But you would probably run into the same issues that Tor does, like with their exit nodes, where there's somebody just kind of waiting there and seeing where this information is coming and going as it hits the broader web as we know it.
Yes, in that case, the exit nodes, for if you are asking for a website, for example, because you don't have internet, but you have this turpil device that can connect in a peer-to-peer way to someone who does have internet, and it's a gateway, right? In that case, you will ask through the mesh network, through hubs, for example, to a new site, right? So the person that runs the gateway obviously can see that you are asking that site homepage, right? What you could do maybe in that situation is that you ask this user for access to a VPN or through somewhere else, so that person can only see you are asking data from a different server, and that server is providing the connection to the internet from elsewhere. Well, but for a person that doesn't have even access to the internet, being able to see the news, like it currently is happening in Myanmar, there is no internet at all for anyone except the government officials. They call it, I don't know, military coup, but now they are called the president. So now they are the government, right? And the things that they decide that no one should be looking at the news. And if you are in this situation, you will find a path in order to at least get information from outside, or you will be at least be able to chat with others around you without being censored. Because take into account that if you are currently inside Myanmar, or you are in Belarus a few months ago, or you are in Venezuela like every day, if you try to talk with others, you have to do it through WhatsApp, right? You have to do it through Telegram, or you have to do it through Keybase. The thing is that those apps are server-based apps. Those apps need to go to the server over the internet, come back, and then get to the person you have on your right side, right? So that travels over the internet is the one that can be blocked at the ISP and government level. But if you have one phone and your neighbor has another, and each one of us are running a turpil Locha mesh node, we can talk to each other directly in a peer-to-peer way, in a direct link between the two of us. And that way we can reach another person, and we can reach another person through path, and we can have a whole network communication inside the country without having to go on and back on the internet that is currently the way that it's been censored.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, it's just its own network at that point. I mean, it's its own. It's a just completely separate network that's passing data through everybody who's you know,
A node.
one of these terpial. I think I'm saying that right. Terpial devices. What are those
Exactly.
exactly? Because I'm not. That's the terpials. I mean, that's just the piece of hardware that's doing the communication. Are those? I mean, can I get one, or do I have to build one myself, or is there? I guess
Well,
how's that?
I can share again here the device, the prototype that we have. Well, this one is ready to be produced. I can share it again here in the presentation. I have it. Well, you can see here. This is the hardware that we currently have in production, and what you can see here. I don't know if you can see my
Yeah, I can see.
cursor, right? What you can see here, this is a development board, right? This is meant for developers and hackers, makers. But if you put a case around it, it could easily be more consumer ready, right? But this device does is that it has an MCU that do all the logic. Here it is. What this chip does, this MCU, is do all the needed logic for the mesh network to work. So if you turn it on, it basically start talking to others around them, saying, "Hello, I'm here. I'm the node number tal, number something," and then I know that I have this neighbor around me, so you can pass information that I can route through these paths, right? Through this path, and this is um, this was important for us that the hardware by itself can do all this work because there are many other mesh networks attempts that try to uh, leverage the user's funds. But users' funds are not meant to be uh, mesh network devices. And the problem with funds is that they have a lot of consumption of battery and they run out of battery pretty fast. And the idea of a mesh network is that you need nodes to be always on. So that's why we created a specific hardware for that can last several days on battery because it's low consumption on energy, and we added some other things to make it easier for people, that you can buy one to make it affordable and you can use it for your whole family, like up to 3 mobile phones and one computer over USB. You can have like 4 clients with the same device because it is like a router but runs that which runs on battery, like a hotspot. So it creates a Wi-Fi hotspot that you can connect to it. And this device is going to be completely open source. So the circuits and everything and the components you will be able to make your own. But we also have a do-it-yourself version of it that you can build with off-the-shelf parts that we and guides that we have on GitHub.
Awesome. Okay. So like if Chill and I both had one of these, how far away or how close would we need to be to each other so that, you know, she was able to, you know, maybe pass me, or that we could connect, that our hardware could connect.
Well, this device, which is mobile first, so you can carry it around and it runs on battery and has enough power to reach distances of up to 7 kilometers in the latest test, right? So you will need to be like between 5 to 7 kilometers radius from another node in order to be able to route information through hubs to get you to your destination. And here comes also gateways, because if I have a city with 20 devices, 20 triple devices, okay, that city has enough coverage, right? Because uh, if there is one every 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers radio is enough in order to get all the nodes inside the same mesh. But if I want to reach other cities, I will need to run, I will need to have this same node, but with a different antenna, a directional antenna that connect to these cities, one with the other, right? Like long range communication between these two. Um, and this also is going to happen through the internet. So if I have a city but it's far from any other city around it, you will be able to also create gateways and interconnect two different mesh networks, or several different mesh networks with each other, using the internet as a bridge between them.
Right.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah. So I've been introduced to Locha Mesh through the Monero community. Before that, I was kind of looking into Goten for a number of years now, since the conference they had in New York City. And I know that there were some nerds who were kind of distributing this Goten. So like they would put like let's say my neighbor will have a Goten on his roof, and then someone nearby has another Goten, and they were trying to create their own little Goten village to kind of grow the network. So in my mind, this is similar. Like if me and Matt would want to communicate, we would have to go every 5 miles and have one of these placed out so that we can communicate, basically.
Yeah. Did the Gotena city ever work? I haven't yet found any Gotena device actually working or doing anything. I don't know. But yeah, you will need to have from like I just say 5 miles from each other, at least one device in order to be able to route messages between them. Yeah. The thing is that we in the early days there won't be enough density of devices, but in that case you can still hack the device as it is open, in order to add more power to it if you are allowed to it, or you don't care about regulation and you still do it, or add a bigger antenna and add um, other needed modifications for it to coverage longer distances. So you could have as said before, directional antennas, or you can have omnidirectional antennas, but with more power, so you can serve more users around you longer distances. So this is obviously in the early days, it's going to be like you will need makers, you will need people who knows about antennas and radio frequencies, and ham radio operators do all the things. Each one of them will be like a service provided for other by relaying and routing messages and data for others. And the interesting thing is that you can get paid for that. So you will be some kind of decentralized self-sovereign ISP for others. So you will be providing a service and you can get paid for that. And even in the most interesting thing, and this is why I like the Monero community that much, is that they came up with an idea that you can mine with your devices that you have in your house. Currently, you don't have internet, and so these devices are basically not usable at all, which is what happened in Venezuela. People have a desktop computer in their houses that are not connected to the internet, and they have a phone that is the one they can pay data plan for. So that computer is there doing nothing. But in the Monero community, they came up with the idea of this computer being able to mine for others Monero users, like a full Monero node operator. And that full Monero node operator can give you something in exchange for your hashing. So this is a way to pay for the servers, for the service that they are going to provide to you, even if you don't have the currency in the first place. Because this is the egg and the chicken. No? You can't get paid in Bitcoin, you can't get paid in Lightning, you can get paid in Monero, but for providing the service. But the person, the client, doesn't have any of those yet. They first need to get online, and they need to get online through you. So you need to at least be able to charge them. And the Monero community came up with the RPC Pay feature that enables these people whose only wealth is having computers that are not connected to the internet. And we are providing them a way for those disconnected computers to be able to connect through the Locha mesh to this service provider that can get them to the internet. For example, to open a Lightning Network channel if they need
Yeah, Monero fam, they just super smart. That's all.
to. Yeah.
So there's another question. So what kind of encryption do the nodes use?
The nodes between them don't use any encryption. The encryption is done at the app level, at the application level. So if you have a chat app, you encrypt the communications between the two participants of the chat. But if you want, you can also transmit unencrypted and plain text. And this is important in the protocol layer itself, because that means that the communication between the nodes don't take much bandwidth. So you have plenty of bandwidth for all the other stuff on top of it. So the communication is like raw communication. The devices talk to each other in a way that they can tell who is the node who is next to me, who is the neighbor that I have next to me. If I need to route information through them, I have all the information I need to make the logics, but I don't need anything else. So you have still plenty of space in the data packets that you send for Bitcoin route transaction, but you can also sync a Bitcoin full node through them. You can access a website, for example. You can access another device over SSH or anything. And you at the app level, like if you are using a browser, like in the demo that we did a few months ago, if you are accessing a website, you are accessing this website over HTTPS, so the information is encrypted, and but you can also access it over HTTP, and that way you might get the website like load faster, but you will do it in plain text. But you are allowed to do it, obviously.
Got it. Okay. Okay, and then I have some questions, obviously, from the community. Some people are in different time zones, so they couldn't join. Um, my understanding that for Locha.io, the factory has closed, and LocaMesh, the open source project, remains. You guys have documentation on GitHub. So they want to know if, like, they have been crowdfunding, I suppose, prior to that, and they want to know if they would receive the pre-order devices, or would they receive a refund equivalent to what they put in. And yeah, I mean, just what's the story in general of like why did the factory close?
Well, the open source project of both software and hardware started as a non-for-profit project, and we ran on donations for a few months, but for the amount of people and the amount of work that needed to be done, we decided to hire developers. So we hired them full time, and we needed to pay them, and donations were not enough back then. And so we decided to create a hardware, which is the device that you are seeing in the presentation, as a way to create a revenue stream, a revenue model, a revenue model that we could tell investors that we were going to build these devices and sell them. But the thing is that the amount of investment that we got, and then 2020 came, and it was not enough to continue having people and on payroll. We we got enough investment and donations and also pre-orders to build everything that you can see online, which is completely open source and open hardware. So you can uh, make your do-it-yourself version of it. You can read the guides in order to do it. You can see the firmware we have contributed to open source operating system that run on many hardwares in many boards. One of those boards now is ours, and this is an open source operating system for IoT. So we contributed to that to also be able to use it ourselves. Um, and the hardware that you see is going to be completely open source too. So this is all the things that we have built in the past 2 years, where we had um, developers in payroll full time. But the sustainability of the project, this by the end of 2020, was very difficult for us. We needed to put a lot of money ourselves, the co-founder and myself. The two co-founders had to put money in order to be able to continue paying the developers for all the work that was needed. We got a grant from the Monero community. We still have to deliver some of the work we want to show them that they have contributed to. We also got enough pre-orders in order to get to the current version of the hardware. And
Mhm.
but when we saw that the number of pre-orders that we were getting, because we didn't have any money to spend on marketing, we didn't have any money to spend on communication and branding, and we were not selling enough, and we didn't have money to put there because we were already putting money from our pockets into the hardware production, because we already had some devices sold that we needed to deliver, and we are going to deliver them. People have been given the option to get the devices they bought. They donated money to and contributed to the project as a promise they were going to get a device, and they are going to get it if they decide to. And we are going to give or offer them also the option to get a refund for the donations. After that, until we have delivered those, once we have delivered those devices, we are going to decide what we can do. If we continue pushing the open source software and open source hardware effort only, or if we are going to also try to pursue a way to raise more money in order to make it the company sustainable enough to have full-time employees.
Mm-hmm. So what was the choke point of like was it the developers? Because sounds to me it just sounds like you guys tried to buy too much. Like you were trying to do a little bit of software, and you also tried to develop a hardware product, which in and of itself, is a big mission. And so like I guess what I'm trying to ask is like, what what would make it easier for you guys to be able to deliver and have a revenue model? Because sounds like the software development, whilst it's essential, it doesn't actually generate revenue because you just pay the developers, but nobody pays for the software, right? Am I correct?
Yes, that's the thing with open source, that you build things, but unless you are getting money from elsewhere, like consulting or working in another job, the open source usually don't get you the money. What what we thought is was going to get us enough money was the hardware that we were going to sell. Despite it being completely open source, we were going to be a seller of that hardware that we were building. The thing is that we not, it's not like we wanted to do many stuff at the same time. Is that the things that we've been building didn't exist before. So the hardware itself exists, like the chip exists. So likely we didn't have to make the chip, the MCU, but that device currently only have firmware that is closed source, that is proprietary. So and it's meant to be used for something else. What we did was get this hardware that is available in the whole world, and many manufacturers make it. So it's open enough that it cannot be like attacked. The producer cannot be censored or blocked because it's ubiquitous. It's a device that is used for many communication systems. And the thing is that we got this, we took this MCU and built the firmware completely open source from scratch without using libraries that try to how you said this is that are not open. So every library that we needed, we built it, we coded from scratch because we wanted to be owners of those code in order to make them completely open source. We were not going, and we have never been asked to sign any NDA or non-disclosure agreement or anything like that, because if that's the case, we will build from the bottom all the code needed so it can be accessible for anyone. That's what we have been spending the time on, and the developer have been working on. And this is what the old guards, Bitcoiners, and people who have believe in us have paid for. And most of them, I guess, are going to be happy to what we are going to show them once we have at least give back to the people who made the pre-orders, right? Once we have time to look back and see what we could have done better. And the thing is that we also created not only the firmware for the hardware itself, but we also contributed to communities that are building other things, and we did it in a completely open source way.
Gotcha. So just a little follow up there, just because I know the person that had emailed these questions in was just wanted a little bit of clarity. But you had said that for the pre-orders, there's an option for a refund, or they can take delivery of the prototype. Is there like a time frame for that delivery, or is that still something that is to be announced?
The people who have made a donation pre-order, they will receive the number of devices they were told they were going to receive for their donation. But we clarified to them that at the current version of the device, it is like a raw PCB board that has some, like, it's meant for makers and developers and people who are advanced enough to use them. So
stuff.
Huh?
It's not like
Sorry?
plug and play, right?
Not at this time. Our plan is that it's going to be, if we can put more time into doing it, right? But we needed to first build the base in order to build the applications on top of it, because the plug and play is an application. And when you plug the device into the computer and an app recognizes and all the stuff, that's an application. But for the device for you to connect it to the USB and the electricity go through the circuits, how you say, feed the chips and charge the battery at the same time. And once the battery is charged, it stops charging and start using the battery as its source of energy for the power it needs to transmit information. That's the thing that we have built. We still couldn't get into the apps part But we, as a in the open source effort, we continue that work. Uh, Obviously, in the time we can, and the resources that we can. But we're going to get there, even if it takes more time with less resources. Our idea is that this is needs to be available, because the things that are going to come in the near future will tell everyone, will make them realize that this is a tool that they need. And most people haven't yet realized that we will need a way to communicate, even with our neighbors, even if they are just like a couple kilometers away. We will need a way to talk to them in a censorship resistant way, and we need a way to talk to the people we love in a private, secure, anonymous way. And most people don't realize this, but 2020 had to happen for people to see it. And well, you can't, I'm currently, you see, with not very good internet connection, but I'm also not allowed to go to the supermarket because I'm so far from the closest bigger city that I'm currently prohibited from going outside this far away place to the not to the closest supermarket. So imagine that is your needs are not only that you need to eat, you also need to trade, because as we were talking before, you need to make money, because money is a way for you to be able to decide. It's your liberties that give you the choice that you want this or you want this other thing. If you don't have the money, if you are not allowed to trade and you are not allowed to communicate with others, you actually don't have any liberties at all.
Yep, and that's yeah, no, and we're seeing that happen all around the world. I mean, when there's any sort of governmental intervention or they don't like what's going on, what's the first thing that gets turned off is the internet. And then if you're really, misbehaving, then they maybe cut the power off and then they start sending in troops. And so, if you're able to communicate with people in a censorship resistant way, I totally see the value in that, even though here in the States it probably doesn't. I don't know that people are quite thinking that way just yet. Maybe the conservatives are as they go underground.
Well, you'll now have snitchers telling what you're saying, and you now have these like see something, send something, right? So make a screenshot, send it to the government. Maybe this person said something that you don't like, and the government agrees with you that this person needs to be shut down, but you don't need to be targeted. Like no one is going to shut down the whole internet in the state of New Hampshire just because the Free State Project is there. That's what people say, right? But that is going to happen, and they don't have to shut down the whole internet if they want to like crack down the Free State Project. They just need to go person by person, because they have the names, they have the IP address, they have the ISP's company, and they can go one by one and block them. And this is the same thing in Venezuela. People say things like, you don't need to run your Bitcoin node because there is no internet in Venezuela enough to do this. You just need to be able to send Bitcoin over the Lightning Network by using your WhatsApp. And I've been for years telling these people that that's not the way to do it, because WhatsApp is everything except censorship resistant, and they don't see it. They say things that, okay, everyone is in WhatsApp, so I need to send Bitcoin over the Lightning Network. I don't know why you would like to send Bitcoin over the Lightning Network in WhatsApp. If you are already using a centralized service like WhatsApp, you don't need the Lightning Network. You can basically use their databases and say that here you have this WhatsApp, send me to WhatsApp, right? And that will be enough for that. That's exactly the same. But well, these people believe in this poor ideas, and the thing is that people say that they are not going to shut down WhatsApp completely because the government relies on that communication channel too. And the thing is that you don't need to shut down the whole internet. You don't need to shut down the whole WhatsApp to harm someone. You just need to target their phone number, which is connected to their WhatsApp. And if you no longer have access to your phone number, which is pretty centralized in an service provider like phone numbers provider or ISPs. Um, you no longer can use WhatsApp. Once WhatsApp run their checks that you have to check that your phone is actually you no longer can use it anymore. And that's pretty targeted and that's pretty easy. But most people don't realize this until it happened to them.
Yeah. Yep. That's yeah, that's an interesting take. Boy,
Yeah.
I hope you're wrong. But it does seem like we're moving that way.
Yeah, I lived through the communism too, back in Europe, and yeah, that was exactly like that. You know, they would censor everything. Phone calls were intercepted, and you couldn't say a joke. You just disappeared. And I mean, we are going that way because we are seeing the censorship on Twitter and YouTube and all these platforms, and they just choke point of free flow of information and actual accurate, truthful information, because there's a lot of misinformation. So I definitely see the need for this. Uh, I'm not sure how something like a mesh network can go um, mainstream, if that makes sense, because it takes so much knowledge to build these or use these and effort, that the only way I see something like Locha Mesh go more mainstream is if they adopt like the Start 9 Lab type strategy, where it's more plug and play and easier to use, and people don't need to have too much technical knowledge to have one of these and communicate.
Yeah, the idea is that it doesn't have to be that way. I think the team was capable of achieving that. Obviously, we will need like several more people to do this, but we were doing this with the resources we had. And I believe there are capable people out there who could join the project in order to reach that simple plug and play version of it. And that has always been in our plans. We haven't limited our ideas like this needs to be marketable or something like that. We have always said that this needs to be usable in the real life. And when we were referring to the real life, we were referring to the perfect storm of Venezuela. So if something can actually be used inside Venezuela, that means it can be used elsewhere, like anywhere else in the world, because you have everything there. You have the power outage, you have bad service providers, you have the censorship, you have the persecution. So we try to do a tool that could be used in this situation. Sadly, uh, as you said before, it is it is bad being right. So we've been trying to build something for dystopic future or dystopic present in some places, and we had the bad luck of being right that this is going to be needed. And I see people who believe in that it's needed. Most people don't believe we are the ones like chosen ones to build it, but we are at least trying it to do it. And we have accomplished most of the goals that we have been trying to show people, that show the community that we were capable of. And I believe that we just need to continue. This doesn't need to stop. We believe that the open source is the way to go. We just hope that more people join us and that more people support us, or if not us, because the project survives the team. It doesn't have to be us. We just need more people to learn what we have built so they can continue even if we are not around.
Got it.
Yeah, I see a question where people say that this is like more limited or more difficult to use than current ISPs. Yeah, the decentralization, disintermediation, trustless systems are way more complex than centralized one. And but you have to see the trade-off, what you are giving, what you are getting. And in this main idea of decentralization, disintermediation, and trustlessness, the we have the same things. Like PayPal works, but we are not trying to do PayPal. We are trying to do Bitcoin, and we are trying to make it decentralized, and we're trying to make it trustless. We at the Locha Mesh are trying to make it censorship resistant. So it doesn't have to be easy. It has to be right. So the thing is that it's sometimes the difficult way to get the thing that you actually need or want, because most people don't see that. Most people don't see that the digital transactions being completely controlled by the governments and the banks and the apps is bad. So most people don't see it that way, because they say things, no, I'm not paying for drugs, so I'm going to be okay. But the thing is that once it's not drugs, the thing that is prohibited or the thing that is persecuted, but it's something else, like, I don't know, being Jew or being white or being black, like in some places happened in the past. And the thing is, once that is the thing that they decided overnight that they want to persecute, they will be able to do it, because you have identified yourself everywhere and in every action that you do online.
Right. Yeah, that's how the internet works. It spies on you these days. But yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. It's kind of the difference between, using your ISP and using a mesh network is like the difference between eating McDonald's or, making yourself a nice balanced salad and, some grilled chicken and broccoli or something like that. McDonald's is a lot faster and a lot more convenient, and you can hit the drive-through and you're eating in 1 minute. But if you do that every day, you're not going to make it till 60
Yeah,
years old.
and if you want a good salad and you want a good steak, you need to grass feed that cow, right? It's not easy.
Hard work. Hopefully, though, you guys will keep making it easier and easier. But you got to get the core concept down. That makes sense. And that is interesting. There's a comment here in the chat that's kind of what everyone used to say about Bitcoin too. Like, why would I use this to send money or value around? It's way easier to use the existing system. And the properties of being permissionless and censorship resistant have proven themselves kind of over and over, as we're seeing with these new all-time highs and whatnot. So why wouldn't a similar theory be true in this situation? So it makes sense to me. I'm really excited about what you guys are doing, and we hope to hear more from you in the future as developments and announcements come up. Please let us know as you guys make progress. And if anyone is watching this replay or is in the chat and is interested in contributing, reach out to us or reach out to Randy. Is there a good email for you, Randy, for people to get a hold of you if they want to contribute or just learn more, or the website and all that? I think
you can post that one, the one of locha.io.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I think, let's see here. The level, he's talking about the level of difficulty. Yeah, like the difficulty to use it.
Yeah, we are going to work on that.
Yeah, that's what, the guy in the chat was saying. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. Bitcoin used to be pretty difficult to use too. I joined Electrum, the wallet, back in 2011. I joined them, or tried to, because I don't know how to code at all, basically. If I say I know, I will be lying. But the thing is that I joined them because they had so many bad UI bugs back then that it was not usable. And it was the most usable wallet out there back then in 2011, obviously, unless you went to MTGOX or something like that, right? Which is centralized exchanges. But the wallet itself was trustless, but it was so bad in UI and user experience. So I provided help on that. I help also translate it into Spanish, and I also manage translations for all the other languages. I'm still manager of the translations, and back then people said things like Bitcoin was difficult to use. You needed to run a full node. So that's why I thought back then that Electrum wallet was the answer to that question. And years later, you have many Bitcoin wallets that do a lot of stuff, and none of them do it like as easy as Electrum. So that's an example of if you find something that is difficult, or you see difficult, or is done and it could be done better, you can join that product and you can help them. That is completely open source. That's the most beautiful part of this, that even if you don't know how to code, you can still contribute to the project. And that's the same with the Locha mesh. We needed help in other things. We needed help on branding. We needed help on communication. We didn't have a lot of like people running our Twitters. So some people make question to us that it took us a couple months to get back to them. So this is the kind of things that everyone could be part of in this ecosystem to make things easier for everyone to use. So we all can be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I like that. I like that approach, for sure. So I think we're probably going to wrap it up here. I don't see too many more questions in the chat, but I think the final thing I'm wondering about is kind of what's next for you all, or what's the immediate goal for Locha in the future, moving forward from here.
We would like to create the developers community. We decided that we were going to do this last punch on getting the devices to people, because we believe that just like the do-it-yourself devices are difficult enough to get people away from the project itself. So we decided that we need to get these TurpioL dev kit devices, development boards, to the hands of the people, because that way some people will not spend time trying to make hardware and still help us and Bayweather help us on the software. So they just now don't have to like try to make the do-it-yourself device from scratch, from parts that they find on the internet and connect them with cables and other stuff. Now they just need to get this device that we are going to sell sometime in the near future, or they can ask someone to manufacture for them a few dozens or a dozen of devices, and then they just can flash the firmware that we have created, and then can start making tools, and they can start making applications, and they can start running servers and running Electron servers, remote monitor nodes, providing services to others, creating more coverage. So that's what we think we believe we are going to be doing in the next few months, is trying to get people to build inside the Locha mesh.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, yeah, like I said, definitely let us know with any announcements or anything coming up, and we'll keep an eye on what you guys are doing, and it's exciting stuff. And yeah, best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for your time, and yeah, we enjoyed talking with you, and hopefully we'll talk again with you soon. But for now, I think we're going to wrap it up, and have a good rest of the day. I don't know if it's evening or night or morning for you, but for us, it's the evening. So we're going to log off here and have our night. But yeah, otherwise, thanks, and talk with you soon.
Great. Have a great Friday.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.